Es gibt Menschen im Hintergrund, die du nie im Vordergrund siehst, die nie im Rampenlicht stehen, aber ohne die größten Brands der Welt nicht existieren würden.
Caleb Ralston is a legend. Yeah. What a good guy.
Caleb Ralston, 17 Jahre hinter der Kamera. Der Mann, der Gary Vee's TikTok in 3 Monaten von 300.000 auf 3,5 Millionen Follower gebracht hat. Der Mann, der als Content Employee Number 1 bei Alex Hormozi einstieg und dessen Audience von 1,2 auf 11,5 Millionen Follower skaliert hat.
Everybody in the industry right now teaches you, in order to make content, copy what your competitor does and make it yourself. And what I'm telling you.
Heute sitzt er zum ersten Mal vor der Kamera und gibt raus, was er 17 Jahre lang nur hinter verschlossenen Türen geteilt hat.
That's literally it.
That's gold. Wir haben ihn gefragt, was wirklich hinter den größten Content-Maschinen der Welt steckt.
The best piece of advice that Gary gave me.
Und wir haben ihn gefragt, was eine Brand wirklich unsterblich macht.
I love this question so much.
Seine Antworten haben uns sprachlos gemacht. Wenn du eine Personal Brand aufbaust, Content erstellst oder ein Unternehmen skalieren willst, dann ist diese Episode Pflicht. Du lernst das exakte Framework, das hinter den größten Content-Maschinen der Welt steckt. Wie du eine Brand aufbaust, die nicht in 12 Monaten wieder verschwindet und warum fast alle, die gerade laut über Personal Branding reden, es komplett falsch machen. Das ist kein gewöhnlicher Podcast. Das ist das Playbook hinter den größten Personal Brands der Welt. Und du bekommst es heute komplett kostenlos. Bevor der Podcast losgeht, kleiner Hinweis, das Gespräch ist auf Englisch. Den Untertitel könnt ihr jederzeit in den YouTube-Einstellungen aktivieren. Nice. Caleb, as I told you in our chat before, 6 years ago we started building our own personal brand. We was one of the first ones in short form format in Germany for educational content, and we didn't expect to explode like that. So it came up that we have like more than 1.7 million followers, and right now we help build more than 100 personal brands in the business, in the finance, and in the real estate industry in Germany. And all that because of one guy who inspired us, and maybe we wouldn't have seen his videos without your work. It was Gary Vee, and he talked about when you're starting a business, post on TikTok, and nobody was doing it. And because of that, it's a huge butterfly effect, and it's a very huge honor for us to have you here in our podcast, because for us, consuming your content and consuming the work you've done, you're the GOAT for us. And in preparation for this podcast, we have to make a decision. We had 2 options. Option A was we can ask you like mainstream beginner questions, which will maybe target a bigger TAM and get more viral and get the big views. Or we can go with option B, which is, as I told you, people call us the social media compass in Germany. And option B would be that we asked you more advanced, detailed, in-depth questions, which will help the industry leader also in the German region, in DACH region, to get to the next level. And that's also the question that we are most curious about and think it will have smaller TAM, but much more impact, because the people who watch this will really execute on this. So if it's okay for you, we go with option B.
I love it. Sounds good to me.
Perfect.
I appreciate it.
We appreciate that you are here. Yeah. So, you're building brands since 17 years now. 17 years, and most of the time that you were behind the scenes, behind the camera.
Yes.
And recently you started to go into the spotlight yourself. And we were curious that what was the most surprising psychological hurdle when starting your own brand, considering that theoretically you knew it all as an expert behind the scenes, but how is it when you started? So what was surprising for you?
Oh, there's a lot, actually. I think there was some things that I believed were necessary or were higher priorities when I was behind the camera for people to do in building their personal brand. And I think there's just a certain level of empathy that you inherently lack by never being in front of the camera, by never putting yourself out there, by never posting a clip that gets misunderstood, right? And people kind of roast you in the comments because they took it one way, right? Because I didn't do a good job of communicating or whatever. And so I think there was a big unlock for me of like looking at the years that I've spent behind the camera working with different individuals, whether it was within, powerlifting, it was in business, or it was in like women's lifestyle publishing, all of these different scenarios, I started to suddenly understand all the little things or isms that would show up on camera, right? Or like the way that people would be concerned about something they say getting taken out of context. I used to think like, who cares? We'll go on to the next clip. And now that I'm actually putting content out there, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that does matter. It does, it is something that you're thinking about and factoring in. So there was a little bit of that, but I'd say the biggest thing was honestly being surprised at how even I battled with the decision of putting out an ungodly amount of free content, right? Like there's a video that we put out where I talk about this. We made a free 6.5-hour course that we put on YouTube,
watched
right?
it, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys are wild for consuming that. Thank you.
2 times, right? One 6 hours and one 6.5 hours or something. A new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw both.
Yeah. Thank you. That is incredible. Well, I remember when we made it, Trevor and I were like, shit, this is really legit. Maybe we should charge for it, right? Like I started to debate that, even though I've worked on multiple different teams where our whole North Star was giving it all away for free. And I saw the business results that came off the back end of that. And even I still dealt with that. And so I think that was kind of surprising to me. I thought that would be an easy battle, but even to this day, there's stuff that we're working on that I'm like, man, I can't believe we're going to put this out on YouTube. That's kind of insane. But it's fun. And I think, we were talking off camera about, you were asking me about how I'm scaling the business. And I wasn't even thinking of this really as a business until recently. It was more like a glorified job. I was going to take on a couple of clients. It was going to be that, and it was going to be groovy. And because we've leaned into this putting out so much for free, the response, the demand has been
I was just about to ask,
nuts.
what was the effect of putting that much value just out there?
I actually don't know the number off the top of my head right now because I haven't checked in like the last week or two. I've been really in the weeds filming some shit, some cool projects, but we have over 50,000 people on our email list.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Like that's absurd, right?
B2B.
In that short time, that's crazy.
Yeah, that short time. And really, even if you look at the time, even though the amount of time is not much, if you look at how much we actually posted in that time, it's even less, right? A lot of people are doing bi-weekly, weekly uploads. We, for our first 9 months of content, we were only doing 1 video a month, right? Like it's pretty crazy. But what we did is we put, I believe, right? We took the effort that a lot of people put into their monthly content, but they distribute that effort across 4 videos, and we put that into one
video.
And I believe that, that's not going to always be our strategy by any means, because like what got you to a certain spot isn't what's going to take you to the next. But I do believe that is something that a lot of people miss out on. They think that it's only volume, and it's not only volume. Now, the key that I'll add, and then I'll shut up and you can go to the next thing. But I had an upper hand, and I want everyone to know that. I've been working behind the scenes for 17, at the time when we started, 16 years. And the year leading up to it, I had met with over 1,000 different business owners. And so I was very clear on the pain points that they had. So I didn't need to, I talk a lot about the accordion method and how you can expand and contract. I didn't have to go through the expansive phase in the beginning of making content because I already had the data to know what my audience needed. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
A lot of people do need to start off with high volume because they need to get that information of what does their audience actually want and need, right? Not what do you think they need, what do you want to make, no, what does your audience truly need? I just had that information when we started. So we had that benefit. And I always like to call that out because I don't want people to misunderstand and say like they should immediately do the same thing.
Yeah.
Since you said that you were working with more than 1,000 people, right? Many of our big clients and also clients we are targeting, right? They have, in their current situation, they have other problems. Like they're working on their business, they already are successful. And most of the times, what they would say is that, yeah, I have other problems and I don't want to put that effort into working or building my personal brand. Would you say it is necessary? Would you say it's necessary, or are there cases where you would say, okay, maybe it's better for you to not start the personal brand?
Because most of them also, they have existing leads and sales channels, and they say, yeah, it's not necessary, it's untouched field, so why put the effort and energy into this new thing, right?
It's a really great question, and I'm a frustrating guest because you want the polarizing response, but I'm going to give you a nuanced one. I think that it really depends on what your goals are and what your roadmap looks like.
Yeah, because most of the time you see people who are like forcing this claim, right? They are claiming, oh, you have to do it. You have to do it. But sometimes
it's horseshit. It's because they're selling.
Yeah, right.
It's because they're like, trust me, I have offers on how to help you grow your personal brand. But I'm not going to go around and shill that out for everybody because I don't think everybody should do it. I actually think a lot of people that are currently saying, I'm going to double down on my, they don't fucking mean it. And they're going to hire 2 or 3 people. And then 2 months later, they're not going to have shit to show for it. 4 months later, they're not going to have shit to show for it. 8 months later, 9 months, 12 months later, they don't got shit because they never actually were really serious about it. Why? Because they didn't define a reason why they needed to do it. They just saw everybody's doing it, so they're checking a fucking box. But the reality is the only reason why you should build your personal brand is if you know that you need to for the business outcomes you want, or for the beautiful mission within you that you want to help accomplish. You want to change something in the world, you need to do it through that. Okay, cool. But if you don't have a good reason articulated why you should do it, I would argue it is a waste of fucking time. 100%. I love that question, man. You got me a little fired up.
It's a good answer. So you already talked about it, but I want to know what advice you would give on that topic, because what is your advice to all the brilliant minds out there who have incredible knowledge, but they choose to remain silent out of the pure fear of judgment, embarrassment, or the fear that their competition will steal their free game they're giving on social media and execute and outrage them with their own frameworks? So what would your advice be?
There's a couple of things to unpack there. So the first thing I would say is if you're really freaked out about it, it's typically because you're freaked out about making videos. So pick a medium that's going to be a little bit lower barrier to entry. Maybe do some written content, maybe do audio only, graphics, things like that, just to make it easier. If your concern is around people stealing your shit, it's going to be a rough life. I think we're going to enter a period of time where there's just going to be more and more of that. I mean, you guys consumed the course. I'm hoping that you maybe downloaded the workbook.
Of course.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
there's people that are remaking that workbook with their own branding and they're selling it right now. I've had literally
selling it.
Yeah, I've had
Okay.
multiple people. I had one guy, bless his heart, and I do not knock him for this. He DM'd me saying that he was doing that. He's like, dude, I repackaged your workbook and I'm selling it and I've made a ton of money.
That's
Thank you so much.
honest,
And I was like, wow, interesting.
The
You know,
audacity.
but what was cool is truly, and I can say this I promise I'm not fronting. I can say this with genuine realness. My first reaction was, fuck yeah, dude, that's awesome. You know, of course it's like, oh man, that's a little interesting. But I take that with such, flattery is not the right word, but for lack of a better term, flattery. Like it's an honor for me. And so what I would say is people need to shift their mindset. It's not bad if people are trying to copy your shit and do your shit. That means that you got something that they don't. Okay, so that is a good thing. And I believe something that I've been talking a lot about recently is like, you know, your expertise is what earns trust. But I think your humanity is what earns loyalty. This is what makes you not interchangeable, right? The commodity is information. Everyone's talking about with AI and everything, info content is blah, blah, blah. And I kind of agree with it. I do think it's interchangeable. Like the reason why my audience is hopefully going to stick with me, even when another character pops up talking about the same shit, is not just because the expertise and the value I'm sharing. It's also they've connected with me on a deeper human level. And so what I would encourage people to do is if they are worried about that, okay, cool. Yeah, the information you're sharing, that expertise, that is a commodity, right? That can be replicated. But you as the human, very hard to replicate. If somebody comes onto the scene and starts talking about loving hardcore shows, metal, Harley Davidsons, right? It's a little fucking weird because they're just copying me. Okay. And that's the thing that can differentiate me and allow my audience to stick with me longer is because we have stacked multiple values, multiple interests in common. So we have a closer relationship. And so people that are afraid of, you know, falling into the noise or having everybody replicate their shit, you got to lean more into who you are as a human. Emphasize the personal in the personal brand.
I also think that people who are afraid to share the real game, like that's the shit that goes viral because it's unique and people tend to know who the original guys are behind these frameworks. The market knows, like even if it's not talked about too much, the market knows somehow. I don't know.
Can I say something a little egregious? I also think a lot of people think they got more game than they do. Like a big one is, I believe this is not a 100% rule. It's an observation. The potential of your personal brand is predicated on the credibility that you have earned in your life and career. If you haven't done dope shit, you are less likely to have a dope personal brand, right? It's just how humans work.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of people that it's not that they're afraid to give out free game. It's that when they try to, it's really not that deep.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually hit for a lot of people. And I think what it is I know for me, I can speak to this very clearly. It's they might be an expert and they might be really good at executing, but just because you're really good at doing doesn't mean you're really good at teaching. And I had to go through a very, very intense period where I learned how to take the things that I was naturally doing, right? My normal MO, my way of operating, and figure out how do I chunk this down into actual skills, activities, tasks in order to be able to teach other people, right? That's what I'm describing is the process of going from individual contributor to leader, and then from leader to public teacher.
I want to go deep down on that because I feel like the ability to just break really complex topics down is really like that's your strength. So what do you think is like what makes a thought leader a thought leader? What like when it comes to like engineering authority, what are frameworks that makes a thought leader a thought leader?
Well, one, thank you. That was very kind of you to say. I've worked for some incredible individuals that are very good at being able to take very tough to grasp concepts and break them down, chunk them down for people. And I've been able to learn and observe how they do it and adapt it for myself. So I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. I've worked really hard on that. So it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say that I don't like, I hate the term thought leader and I hate the idea of aiming for authority. The beginning, when I started all this, my website, one of the taglines was like something about building authority in your space. And I'm just going to be real. That was a ChatGPT line. I don't like this whole thing of like, it's the same idea. I don't have any issues with going viral. I don't like aiming for virality. I think authority is something that is a byproduct, right, of you doing the right things, which means basically, I think all you need to do, if you really boil it down, is you need to set expectations of problems that your customers face, set the expectation of that problem, and then help them solve that. And by doing that over and over, you create trust, which I think is what people are trying to get at with authority. I think authority is a funny way of saying trust. I think it's just people trust that you are going to do what you say.
And are there any things that the people you work with, like the incredible minds, like Gary Vee, like Alex Hormozi, like all these entrepreneurs, things they do that we don't see, that nobody talks about, like the boring shit nobody wants to do to get to that level?
Yeah, they work really fucking hard. But to,
What does that
real
mean?
quick,
What does that mean?
I want to hit that, but the thing that we left out on the framework thing, to help really take a concept that is tough to understand and make it simple for your audience, there's 3 questions that I like to answer. Number 1, is this simple for my audience to understand immediately? Number 2, is this valid or true in 3 different scenarios? That takes it from a tactic to a principle. If it only works in one scenario, it's a tactic. If it works in multiple scenarios, you can call it a principle. The third one is it useful? Okay? The first 2 can be amazing and make you sound smart as fuck. But something that Trevor and I really work on, and something that I've learned from many different individuals, is you can say shit to sound smart, or you can say shit to actually help people. And the 2 are not always the same. And so just because it sounds smart and it's valid doesn't mean it's actually useful for your audience. And if it's not useful for your audience, then why are we saying it? If you run every framework concept through those 3 questions, your communication ability and ability to take things that people around you do not understand and make it understandable will increase dramatically.
That's incredible advice, because I feel like most experts, they tend to speak over the top, not in the language of their audience, because they're experts and they forgot how to speak in the language of the audience, of the beginner. And I feel like the real experts, the biggest personal brands like you and the people we hear the podcast about, like we said, Dane Walker, Dan Martell, or Stephen Bartlett, they're incredible communicators, and I think that's a thing that it's not talked about enough. The incredible skill of breaking down complex topics into very few clear words. And you showed us now the framework. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask because I'm very curious about it. But even if in a podcast like now, you have the skill to break down these complex topics into very few clear words, how does the process in your brain look like before you start speaking? Because I think that's something that is very underestimated and a very important skill to have a good personal brand, be a good communicator.
I think it's less about what's happening in the moment and more the preparation. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we talk about off-camera work, you know, the things that people don't see. I don't want to bullshit you guys. I don't do this with every single podcast, mm-hmm. but a lot of podcasts that I do, I try to rewatch them mm-hmm. when it comes out, mm-hmm. and I try to see my answers. Mm-hmm. And I'm an impatient person. And so if I'm taking a long time to answer the question, I'm like, fucking answer the question, Caleb. And so then I pause it and I try and figure out how could I say what I just said in less words.
That's gold.
That's literally it.
That's gold. That's gold advice.
It's so funny. I'm going to tie this in. I'm going to force this into a segue to Rick Rubin because I love that man and I'm learning more and more about him.
The Creative Egg was the book, right? Rick Rubin?
Yes. Yeah. And the producer behind, you know, the greatest music mm-hmm. in the last 30, 40, 50 years. Mm-hmm. I'm listening to a book about him right now, and it's incredible to hear a lot of the way he approaches everything with the studio mm-hmm. and with an artist is kind of how we think about making content and showing up to a podcast mm-hmm. or a film session, mm-hmm. which is it's all about pre-production. His whole thing is like we work for months, sometimes years, preparing for the 1 week we're going to be in the studio.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, 1 week. They cut albums in a week. Mm-hmm. That's his typical move. But they spend months or years working in pre-production, figuring everything out, all the details. And I think that's something I'm trying to continually lean in more and more is how do I improve my communication skills, not while we're here. This is a rep. It's mm-hmm. a form of reps. Mm-hmm. But my real reps come when I'm breaking down how I could have done it better. Mm-hmm. Or when, you know, Max, our editor, sends us a cut of a YouTube video. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, he did his darndest to edit around my, you know, gift of gab, mm-hmm. my blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But I want to be able to say this more concisely in the future.
So basically you're saying that it's the iteration and also the preparation, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. There's a podcast that Trevor and I did on my YouTube channel. I highly recommend anybody that's liking what we're talking about here. That's like some real deep in the weed shit. And the big theme that we pulled out of the year, the first year of building my personal brand, was iteration. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We just iterate like fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's what I've figured, that most of the people who are like really successful are like really obsessed to perfection. Like they look at their work and they're not satisfied with their work, and they're always trying to improve until it becomes really perfect.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm trying to do that and the opposite. So my whole thing is I optimize for longevity. I want to be playing this game for as long as I want to. I don't know what that number is, but I want to be able to go for as long as I desire. And so on one end, I hate everything that we do, and I think it's total dog shit and not even close to where I want to be. And on the other end, I'm incredibly proud of the fact that we've accomplished what we've accomplished we're entering month 13 now. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it's like that. Gary always talks about drawbridges, right? And like pulling hard from opposite directions. Mm-hmm. And that's a tension that I'm always trying to hold. Mm-hmm. You know, I want to answer your question earlier because you
what
guys
is the hard work?
Yeah. What is hard work? Yeah. I think what it is it's like, it's different for everybody, right? You know, for some people it's writing, 100 versions, not literally, but 15, 20 versions of a book they're working on and just iterations. Right, over and over. For some people, it's, for Gary, for example, it's the fact that he spends so much time truly understanding his community. Like, people don't realize that man reads so many DMs and responds to so many DMs to this day. That man responds to, like, in May of 2025, he did this really cool collab with Topps Chrome cards for VeeFriends, and he brought all the OG Daily V characters back to film with him. And I traveled with him and saw. And even to this day, that man, when he's got a break, he's either responding to something for Vayner, right? Or he's in the DMs responding to his community.
And he talks to people. Like, he's always at
Actually
some
talks
events.
to them. Yes. And so it's like, that's the work that he's doing to really have a true pulse on his community and society, is he's constantly listening. The man who a lot of people see in interviews interrupt a lot, they wouldn't assume this, but his greatest skill, the hardest work that he does, is the listening that he's doing.
That's crazy. You said something before that I want to challenge. You said that, I ask it differently. I saw many content experts talking about you have to go on volume distribution. And a few weeks ago, I saw a reel, I think it was from Alex Hormozi. He was in the office with his team and Sharon Sirata and Layla, and he was talking about don't complain if you're not growing faster than your competition, if you're not posting 3 to 5 times a day on short form platforms. And I was asking myself, because we tried it ourselves, if you have a brand on this level and you post 3 to 5 times a day, you see that most of the posts, they get good views, they get good reach, because people are listening because it's you, right? Because they know that you have this authority built through the work you did before. When we start posting 3 to 5 times a day, like the old formats that you used to post, they still work, but new formats will flop many times. And in general, we see that the views go down. So my question is, what do you think about this take, and how important is distribution versus positioning? And more importantly, it's a question, at what stage should you start posting that much?
Lot of things in that.
Yeah.
The first thing that I will say is a lot of people that are encouraging high volume publicly in their content, these are individuals who meet and engage with thousands of people a year, right? Thousands of business owners. And they start, right, like they're not only engaging with them in person, but also in the DMs, comments, and seeing a lot of patterns. And the thing that I will say, because Gary, has been talking about posting 12 clips a day for years, right? And this is my take without saying this is exactly what they're saying, because I'm not in their brains. I believe it's a case of, I know nobody's going to do anything that I say. So if I say post 12 times a day, maybe you'll post once a day.
Okay.
So that is a big part of it. That is a big, I'm not saying that's the only thing, but that is a big part. Is like, let's start fucking doing something here, right? And if I say this number, I know you're never going to come close to this number. So let me say a number that when you settle, you at least do something that's going to be meaningful. So that's one part. I think that volume is incredibly important to acquire information. I also think it's important to stand out, and we're in a weird spot right now because we're like literally in the evolution of like AI generated content impacting our created content. And so like I'm speaking about this in the moment of a transition. So I want to qualify that it's like we're in a transition that I don't predict the future on. So I'm not going to predict the future. But as of right now, I believe that the main purpose of volume is to get data on what your audience wants more of, so you can put more effort into that and have that single piece do far better than the 10 pieces that you posted last week. So I think volume is important. Now, you look at me, I haven't gone high volume on any platform.
But you have the information before you started, right?
What?
You said, as you said, but you don't need the information because you had the information before, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And also, I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question on that, because in Germany, you have a saying that repetition makes the truth, right? So have you ever heard about the contrarian belief dilemma? So it's like you start with a topic, you're getting famous for what you're saying, right? And at some point, people trying to adapt what you're saying, and at some point, it's just like mainstream.
Yeah.
So are there ways to like get other edges or other angles? What are the ways we are dealing with this thing when after a certain time, people are just copying what you're saying.
And what's contrarian isn't contrarian anymore, so it's now mainstream.
Well, we're describing the whole thing that I came onto the scene talking about, which is optimizing for trust over virality. And when we first started last year, there was very few people talking about that. All the thumbnails were talking about
Now it's
viral,
for Instagram.
and now all the thumbnails
Exactly.
are antiviral.
So, how do you deal with this?
I feel proud. I feel a certain level of. I'll get to where it nets out. I don't think that we are the reason that happened, but I think that we don't influence the masses. We influence the influencers. A lot of people that are making content that have huge audiences watch our shit. And so I'm grateful that we're having that impact and change.
Yeah.
To your point, what becomes my enemy or what is my contrarian take next? Is that really what you're getting at? Is like, how do you then, once that no longer, you build your brand off of something and it no longer becomes contrarian, where do you go from there?
Exactly. And how do you try to maintain their relevance?
Well, I think trying to maintain relevance is a recipe for not being relevant, for one. I think always the thing that everyone needs to always focus on is not trying to remain relevant. It's to always provide the most value to the customer, to the viewer. Gary has a saying, she or he who provides the most value will always win. And it's so true. And so for me, what it is at a macro, I have that contrarian take that I came on the scene with, but I'm always throwing out smaller ones, right? Right now I'm on this big kick of I love using AI as a multiplier, not as a source. And everybody's using AI as source, and it's why so much content looks like the fucking same, and it's all bland, right? And so that's a contrarian take that I'm taking right now. I won't hold that for very long, because at a certain point, AI is going to be really good at this shit, I'm sure. But right now, it's not. And there's all these fucking individuals online, I'll say, that are like, I replaced my entire content team with AI. And I made a post yesterday. I was like, yeah, it shows. Your content sucks.
I saw it on ChatGPT was writing the screenshot, right?
Yeah.
Posting screenshot. Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
it.
like it's clearly not good. So what I would say, to your point, is there's always going to be things, if you're truly in it, there's always going to be things that are being said in the industry that you're going to disagree with. And so I believe it's my responsibility to vocalize my opinion on those things and do my best to provide the best alternative for the audience to take action on. And maybe that can no longer become a contrarian take. And then I've done my job.
Interesting. I want to go to the topic content teams, because I see that more and more founders realize that you have to treat content not like, I just hire a social media manager and she will do it or he will do it, but you have to treat it like the sales team. You have to treat it like the account management team. It has to have our own culture. And I have many questions on that. My first question is, when working with these top business people who are busy, like literally busy, how involved were they in their own content strategy, or how involved are you right now, for example, working with Trevor?
Yeah. Not one size fits all. Everybody had different amounts of involvement, right? Every single person I've ever worked with, it's always been different.
But was there someone who, because many of the founders we talk to, they say, I see personal branding and social media is important, but I don't even like it, so I want to delegate 100%. Have you seen any successful brands to do it like this?
Yes.
Yeah, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. They're very successful. They get a lot of attention, but they don't build a really strong brand. They don't have that level of depth and connection, right? They are trading on the commodity, just the information.
Interesting.
My belief is if your team or AI is at the, well, let's leave AI out of it for a second. If your team can write your content just as good as you, then are you really an expert? Right? Like, Trevor has been working with me for 5 years. He knows me really well. He knows a lot of what I have to share, okay? Out of anybody, and out of most of these dynamics, he has a very good understanding of what I'm going to say, what I share. And he can actually write a lot of my content now. He can get really close. But he doesn't have all the experiences that I have, and he never will. He's going to have his own, which is why we're putting him into more content, because he's fucking murdering that shit. But there's a certain level of like special sauce. You can tell, actually, I'll put it this way. You can tell the creators who are writing their own shit, they're saying their own words, versus the ones that are reading off a teleprompter what their team wrote for them. It lacks, and this is, I have homework to do on this. I'm still trying to figure out how to like articulate this. We say it lacks human, like, that's not the right way to describe it, but there's something missing there and we can all feel it, okay? And so it is my opinion that the best version of this has the talent involved in the writing process. I'm not saying they have to do everything, but they do need to be involved in it. To your point, where I'm now realizing you're getting at, everybody I've ever worked for in-house, it was their words, not ours. Like, I definitely would get us as a team, or, you know, with Gary, I would ask him questions to try and pull things out. We would structure videos, right? We would build them like Mad Libs. So it's like, this is the structure of the video, but you need to put in your information because you're the expert here. Like, I think it ends up becoming like having a Jack and Coke rather than a Jack. And I just want shots of whiskey, not whiskey and Coke. Clip that moment by itself.
But you said you were really deeply working with people like Gary or Alex Hormozi. How did your day-to-day working look like, and what did you need from them in order to like make a good job and make good content?
So I can answer this in two different ways. I can give you the answer that is fun to see what these characters were doing, or I can give you the useful answer that's helpful for everybody.
Please, useful. Be useful.
The best piece of advice that Gary gave me and a couple other individuals when we moved on from the team. That man is unbelievably supportive and very insightful, because he, I think, knew at some level, I'm a pattern recognition kind of character. And so I noticed all these patterns on how Team Gary was built around him, and probably believed that I had a high likelihood of trying to just replicate that in the future for somebody else. And he said, Caleb, I want you to make sure that you don't try to build what we built here, but anybody you ever work for and build a personal brand team around, reverse engineer them and their needs. Don't carbon copy what we did here. Because nobody's like me, and nobody's like them, and nobody's like Sarah or Sally Pants 49 or whatever he always uses, right? And so the big thing for people to realize is all three of the characters that you just mentioned are all completely fundamentally different in how they approach content, which means there's no one right way to do it.
Interesting.
And that's the beautiful unlock for people. Gary never sits, I mean, occasionally, but it's very rare that he sits down to make content. 99% of what you've seen out there in the world. Exactly, right? And then there's other people that literally they spend 8 to 12 hours a week in a studio to film content. Both are equally as valuable. I would argue the just documenting everything is harder to have success with in today's society, right? And the way that content works online right now. But it's still 100% doable. And so the biggest thing that I would tell everybody is you need to figure out what your strengths, your weaknesses, your preferences are, and build around that, not trying to copy what you've seen other people do because you are not them. The whole, like, there was a craze back in 2018 to 2020. I don't know if you guys remember this, when everybody was like, I'm gonna be Gary Vee and have a videographer follow me around. And guess what? It didn't work for most people because they're not Gary. Gary speaks in sound bites. Gary's mind works like, you were asking me, like, how does my mind work? Like, his mind is fucking insane the way that it operates. Nobody is like that.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I think if you are documenting or posting content that it's live, people can see that, and so it will trust more scale. It will scale more trust because people see you're not a teleprompter influencer. So you really like that, and you really have the knowledge.
Demonstration of excellence rather than just talking about excellence.
Yeah,
seeing you in action in a world where there's so many fucking, let's just call it what it is, grifters and fakers online that are full of shit and lying to us every day on YouTube, Instagram, whatever, like, because they're just sitting in their studio with their red and blue light behind them and saying shit. let's see it in action. Let's see if this is actually fucking real.
Yeah, yeah. So, how does the perfect organizational structure of a content team look like? Was it same at all these big brands? No.
See,
All right.
this is where I'm annoying as fuck.
Yeah, yeah.
Is I don't believe there is a playbook for how to build a media team. The playbook is to reverse engineer the needs, strengths, and weaknesses of the talent, and then build around that. And how you go about hiring the next role. So you hire, I hire a content director and Trevor. The next hire that we did was an editor. Why? Because our biggest constraint was editing.
There's editing. And if you have you have all the money in the world and you can build the perfect team, the money is no constraint. Are there any non-negotiables, so like a creative strategist, a project manager, or somebody like, for example, in my experience, I saw that the people who are the most creative, who have the best ideas, are not the ones who enjoy much the managing of the distribution or the feedback of the editors or something.
A project manager is a big one, actually. It's a sleeper. And a lot of people think that, they can get around it. They think that they can implement a thing where it's like, all the creatives are going to be organized and be project managers. It's like, have you ever been around a creative? The majority of them are not
That's
that
what I
way,
mean.
right?
Yeah,
and
that's what I
you're 100% correct. So I think a project manager or like someone with operations chops is an absolute necessity. That's where a lot of this falls apart, is somebody has a good creative vision. They make cool shit. It looks cool, but they can't stick to a deadline. They don't do a good job of, if they get revisions from, the talent, making sure that the team actually implements it. And so that would be one that I would say is absolutely critical. What I would say is most important is if you hire somebody to film, if it's your videographer, your content director, or you have your EA come in and operate your camera, whoever that is, it needs to be somebody that you really fuck with. And to make sure that that doesn't get messed up in translation, it needs to be somebody that you really like being around and you want to be around more, right? I enjoy hanging out with Trevor. When we're not filming, I still enjoy hanging out, right? Like, we love just shooting the shit. And that means that I look forward to film sessions. I trust him. If I have a shit morning, right, where like I have 3 fires pop up with different clients and something horrible going on in my personal life, I can actually tell Trevor and it puts my anxiety at ease. And then I walk into this podcast and I'm like, oh, everything's all groovy and chill, right? And so you need somebody that you feel really comfortable with. Because if you don't, you're going to start to slowly branding, you're pairing film sessions with somebody maybe you don't like. And so the byproduct is going to be the brand of filming content sucks. You're not going to want to make content in the future. You want to create something, you want to create a brand around filming that makes you want to come back in the future.
That's a gold nugget right there, because I was about to ask, what is more important? Is it like the people or the systems you put behind those things? And
I think,
or is it both
it
equally
depends
important?
on the individual.
Okay.
Some people are going to care more about the systems than the people. I'm always going to care more about the people. I all day and night. Systems are incredibly important, and it's like the immediate next thing. But for me, it's the people, right? I want to work with people that I enjoy being around, right? My chief of staff, Kate Padova. Like, I love hopping on calls and chatting with her, right? Like, you want to surround yourself with people that make you excited to do more of this, not make you anxious about the idea of showing up to a film session. And like, I want to hit this really hard. There's a lot of people that I've worked for or worked with that have talked about how they hated making content because the videographer they worked with made them feel awkward, made them feel bad when they messed up a line, made them dread film sessions. And then when they started working with me or when I worked for them, we changed that and they started looking forward. They would see, oh, Friday's blocked off for a full 10-hour film session.
Let's go.
Awesome. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Whereas before, their heart rate would go up. Their stomach would go in knots, right?
That's some advice nobody talks about. That's really gold, yeah. Because everybody just talks about scorecards and KPIs, but that's the real thing. So what are the real ingredients when building a creative vision that motivates the creative team to hit their full potential? Because I like to work with people who are on fire. And for example, our sales team, so they can't sleep at night if they don't hit their goals. But their motive is very clear. In the sales team, it's like mostly money. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's the same thing with the creative team. So how do you motivate a creative team to go all in, to do the night overs, and to be on fire?
I'll share what I have done. There's two main things that I want to speak to. One is I hire people who care a lot. And what this typically looks like is they show up on the interview really anxious and their voice is cracking and they don't answer questions super well because they really care. And so they're nervous. I try to hire around caring. I think caring is an incredible thing that not a lot of people talk about. It's the thing that has been probably the biggest torture for me in my career, but also my greatest asset is I care an ungodly amount, like an insane amount. And the talent I'm working with, I care for at a really high level.
But what do they care about?
Great work, right? I have found identity in my work, and we can have another conversation on whether or not that's healthy or not. But what that has caused me to do is apply a different level of care to everything that I do. I'm the asshole that when I was editing a 4.5-hour vlog for Gary, I had to watch it not at 2x, 1x. Twice before I released it. Was I ever told to do that? No. In fact, I was literally told, don't do that. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Like Gary's so relaxed on that kind of stuff. He's the best client in the world on that. But I care. I have to make sure there's not a drop frame or maybe something that was a sensitive moment with a client that shouldn't go out, right? His mode of operation was like, we can cut it afterwards, which is crazy. But so I think a level of care, that's one. But then from I got to ask you to put in the extra 3 hours on a Friday night level, I've done it. And so I feel completely comfortable asking my team to do it because I've never asked my team to do something that I haven't done more of, ever, not once, not a single time. And what I make sure to do is tell the war stories, not in a braggy way. I'm sure there's been times where I do that because I'm a human and I'm victim to those kinds of things. But for the most part, I'm trying to share the war stories so that they know, hey, when I ask you on a Friday night to make tweaks to the video we're shipping tomorrow morning, and it's going to take you 3.5 hours, I know exactly what that means because I've done it for 15 fucking years, right? And so by sharing that, again, not in a braggy, I'm better than you way. Like, I'm sure there was times where it came across that way because imperfect delivery, but my goal was always to share it so that they knew if I'm going to ask you something, I know what it means, which means it must be important. And if your team knows that you've done that and are still doing that shit, I have found there's a different level of response, right? Like when I ask Trevor now to do the unspeakable, which is like, hey, I want you to film this curriculum with me. Your first video, really real video, direct to camera style. And we're not going to make one video. We're going to make 4 different video courses within an entire curriculum. And it's going to take us 13 fucking days, 8 hours a day. And that's going to be your first time. That's insane. But I also feel comfortable with it because my first video ever was filming that, or second video, I guess, technically, was that 6.5-hour course. So I know, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I can make big asks of people because I have stepped up for the big asks in my background.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
totally
It's
makes
leadership,
sense.
right?
Yeah, like if you're asking people to do shit that you wouldn't be willing to do, they'll smell it.
Yeah,
But
and they want to respect you. Yeah.
Are there any incentives you put out there for your team in order to like make them really go for it, or is it just that?
Oh yeah. I mean, it very much depends, on the organization and kind of how they run those kinds of things. I know at Ralston, out of respect for them, I'm not going to go into the details, but I try to incentivize Trevor and Kate immensely.
Okay.
Right.
How does that look like, and are there any KPIs they have to reach?
Yeah, we use the whole VFO and MIT thing. Basically, it's like an adaptation of what Hewlett Packard was using, and I think his name is Stephen Covey, wrote about in one of his productivity books. But basically, vital few objectives. We set up 3 or 4 for the year. And then every quarter we set up MITs, most important tasks, right? These are like the 3 things that we're going to focus on. If we do these 3 things, the business moves forward. If we don't, tough. And so basically, I think it's, and I'm trying to remember off top, I don't look at this document a ton, but it's like roughly 10 out of 12. If they hit 10 out of their 12 MITs for the year, it unlocks actually an increase in profit share. My business is not a sellable business. It doesn't have any enterprise value, so equity in it would be fucking pointless, right? As a side note, for any creative, if you are joining into a business and they are offering you equity, make sure that's actually worth something, like they're gonna actually sell it. Otherwise, I don't really see the point in doing it. And so for us, we don't have like some sort of enterprise value machine, but we have a pretty high profit machine. And so I give them a percentage of the profit. And I have a number that every year, as long as they hit those 10 out of 12 MITs, they unlock another 0.5% up to a certain cap.
Let's go.
The reason why is because I'm not greedy. I'm not trying to take it all for myself. And I know they're both gangsters that I like to talk about publicly, which means they're getting offers from people all the time. So I need it to be a competitive environment for them to want to stick around. I also know that they're both entrepreneurial. They've both actually at separate times mentioned to me different ambitions of building their own thing one day. And I want them to be able to do that. But I also want to give them the opportunity, if you want to be what some people call like an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Like Greg Levecchia actually with Bloom, he talks about this a lot. Like he's building Bloom in a way where like all the employees within the company, they're entrepreneurs. They can build within the organization. And I like the idea of building that and giving them the incentive to think the same way that I think.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
What we see a lot in the American market, because I feel like us Germans, we mostly take a look on what Americans do and try to adapt it into the European market. But what I feel like is that the players in America, they shout, they make big claims, and it's working. Whereas in Germany, most of the people are more skeptical. Like, if you know that, what would you do if you had to start all over in a market such as a German market where most of the people in the audience are really skeptical to build a brand?
They see it as a virtue to be skeptical.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people recently bring this up to me in the European kind of market. And it's interesting. I would do exactly what I did when I started my personal brand. I would look at what the norm is, and I would do my version of the opposite. It has to be core and true to you. Don't front, don't put on a version of yourself that you're not. But one, I would say, I think that we're about to go into a season potentially where that loud shouting claim-based content isn't going to be as effective in the States. I think we're getting a little fatigued with it. I know I am. I'm fucking tired of that shit. I don't want it anymore in my feed. And so I think one, that's being played out, but I would just say the most important thing for you to do is identify what your competitors are saying and doing that you disagree with or don't like, and do the opposite. Literally that. Like, the reason why we put out the 6.5 hour free course on YouTube is because I saw a lot of the people that make personal branding content sell a bullshit course on their website that's 4 or 5 years old. It's not relevant anymore. It's not very good, and they're selling it. And it was like, okay, cool. No problem with selling a course. That's fine. But if I want to stand out, I should probably make something better than their paid thing and make it free. And so the principle, no matter where you are, is look at what everybody else is doing and figure out. I talk about this a lot. Maybe you guys have heard me say it, but there was a meme back when Facebook was cool that went around of all these penguins in the Arctic sitting around. And you just could scan and you see all these penguins and they all look the same. And then there's this one polar bear that's just sitting there like, right? And he's standing, or she is standing above everybody else and just massively stands out. Like your eyes go right to the polar bear. I want to be the polar bear.
Yeah. Like liquid death in the water industry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we could name 1,000 different versions of this right now, right?
And what are to be more tactical, what are the angles from which we can be different? Because, for example, right now in Germany, so it's also because of us, but the real estate and finance industry is pretty saturated. So there are
Good.
dozens and dozens of personal brands, and everybody has an opinion, more likely like the other. But some are saying what he says is shit, and the other say what he says is shit. But what are new angles you can look to not be different than him, but then still be similar like him? You know what I mean?
I would recommend doing it less on an individual basis and more an industry basis. So you've never once heard me come after or go against an individual creator. Not once. I go against the collective thought of optimizing for virality, right? And so that would be the big thing that I would say there is look at it from an industry perspective, not an individual perspective. Yeah, I mean, that would be the biggest one. I would just say too, like, differentiation comes from your contrarian belief for sure, but also the way you deliver. Back to your point earlier, if everybody is loud and demonstrative, being calm and inviting can really work. I use this example all the time. Sarah Snow is one of my favorite Instagram accounts. Her content is very warm and inviting. It's not intimidating to consume, right? And so it's looking at what people are doing, not only from like what they're saying and preaching, how they're showing up, you know? Like I said, I casually mentioned it. Maybe some people caught it. Every bro online shows up with a blue and red light in the background.
Yep.
Just don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't put a fucking fake plant in the corner, a bookshelf full of shit that you've never read, and red and blue light in the background. And that's like the beginning right there, right? Like, look at how we make our videos. It's pretty different than what a lot of people in my space are actually doing visually. We just released a video where I'm sitting in the back of my fucking pickup truck in the mountains.
Yeah, I saw it. Also on the Harley and with your green tones.
Yeah.
I see. How important are these visual metrics in building a personal brand? Like visual, what your colors are, what your clothes are, the language that you speak.
Important.
Not important.
It's so important, and it's not important at the same time. Meaning, in the beginning,
It's like an Easter egg.
What?
Easter egg, like an Easter egg.
Yes.
Like in Marvel movies,
Yes,
they put
yes,
Easter
yes.
eggs in it.
Yeah. It's like that. It's what it is it's an element of branding, and everyone thinks that is brand and that's branding, but it's an element of branding.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
By me intentionally pairing myself with our green over and over and over again, the audience who's consuming our content regularly is going to start to now see that green and go, "Is that Caleb?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's the importance of it. It has no effect in the beginning. It has zero impact for you. And so anybody who is overthinking a brand style guide in the first year of their personal brand is wasting their time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's important, but it's not the thing that's going to move the needle for you. Again, the reason why I did that at the beginning is just because I've been in this for a very long time. And I have a stupid subjective bar that I hold ourselves to on the aesthetic. That's only because I have a production background.
Yeah.
It's not because I know that's going to move the needle.
Yeah,
It
I
doesn't.
understand. I have one last question that has been on my mind, and in some way you answered some parts of it in this interview, but I still want to know your take on it, considering that we are living in the age of AI. And the question is, I saw an interview like 2 weeks ago from Helmut Schmidt. He's one of the leaders of Germany from back in the days. So he was the chancellor of Germany, and he was asked in an interview. Now he's dead. Rest in peace. He was asked right before his death how he judges the work of the chancellor to that time. It was Angela Merkel, and he said we will be able to judge it not now but in 10 years. And my question based on that regarding to personal branding is, I think we all know now that like the follower count or the views will not make a brand generational. What does make a brand generational?
I love this question so much. I think it's putting the audience and the customer first. I think it's always doing that. I think so many people start their personal brand, start making content with what is going to get me the most attention and views, not what is going to be the most useful for my audience. And I think that gets you a lot of attention. but it builds a foundation on sand. It's not a firm, deep foundation. And so when the storms and pressure come, your foundation cracks. I think that's what a lot of people are doing right now. They go mega top of funnel, as wide as humanly possible to get as many people into their world. And they got a lot of people consuming their content. And when the next shift comes with the algorithm or preference of the consumer, they won't give a fuck about that person anymore, because they didn't build a true level of connection, and connection predicated on you actually help me solve my problems. Not just you entertain me, not just, you know, I consume your shit because it shows up on my feed, but I actually seek you out. And so what I would say is everybody in the industry right now teaches you, in order to make content, copy what your competitor does and make it yourself. They tell you to start with the competitor in mind. And what I'm telling you is start with the customer in mind. You'll build a way different personal brand.
That was so great.
Yeah, perfect answer. Yeah. Really deep. And it's interesting how much also we still can learn to make it more generational, because that is what our main goal is. Yeah, to have impact on people's lives. Yeah, it's not the money first. It's not the number of employees first, but it's how many people can we have impact on. Right?
I'm telling you, the kid who gets millions of views every month on TikTok with their information-based content, a lot of them don't have people coming up in the streets and being like, thank you, you changed my life. People who make their content optimizing for their customer, for their audience, to actually help them and serve them above their own ego, those are the individuals who have people coming up to them and being like, you radically changed my life. And that is what creates a legacy brand that doesn't die and fade in 12 months, in 24 months, or when the algo changes.
Perfect. Caleb, it was an honor for us. It was a party. We had a lot of fun, and we hope it wasn't the last time, because right now, out of these questions we're asking, your answers, we have like 100 more questions, and I hope we get the opportunity to sit here together one more time.
I would love it. This was awesome. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you for this session. It was really gold.
Yeah.
It was really gold.
I appreciate it,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
You guys are awesome. Thanks.
You too.